Today, in this almost midpoint of the fifth week of Lent, we begin by recalling the fact that John wrote this gospel that we may have faith into Christ and go on believing. And in John 8, we saw an incident where a woman had been brought to Jesus, caught in the very act of adultery. And our forebears suggested that when Jesus scribbled in the dust, he may well have been writing down the sins of the accusers. Now, we don't know that, but it's a fascinating thought and accords well because Jesus knows the hearts and minds of all. And that particular incident is the cause of much teaching and conflict and confrontation. And in verse 31, we read that there were Jews who had believed in Jesus, and Jesus says, not that that's bad, but it's a start. If you hold to my teaching, you really are my disciples. So, as disciples of Jesus, we want to know the teaching of Jesus and live it. But not just to live it as it were as a kind of code or morality, though that would be half decent, but to live it in the power of the Spirit, or to live it in the power of the resurrection Lord. And Jesus says, you will know the truth, and the truth sets you free. Now, truth is one of the titles for Jesus himself. It's a title that will bounce back to us too on Good Friday. Pilate asks, what is truth? And then puts above the cross, Jesus Christ, King of the Jews. And Pilate himself wouldn't soft soap that. Others asked him to soft soap it down to he claimed. Pilate, for whatever reason, let it go. You'll know the truth. Truth is freeing. Lies bind, and they bind you down into darkness and intensify ignorance. But truth in the scripture is Jesus. The father of lies, of course, is about to be defeated. Then Jesus moves on and he talks about sin and how we get enslaved to it. What an apt description. That which we feed, that which we dwell on, that which we think about, that which feeds us and binds us, enslaves us. And Jesus talks about freedom, a freedom that is ours in him, where we move out of slavery to sin, and a whole new life is coming. Then in context, he takes the people listening back to a discussion about Abraham. And from Jesus' perspective, the truth, what Abraham taught was all about him, was all about pointing to Jesus. So those that claim to have faith and claim to have the faith of Abraham would, and automatically is the wrong word, but would find themselves led to Jesus. Then there's a response. We are Abraham's children. And Jesus goes, no, there's something much more profound here. Are you a child of my Father? In other words, to whom do we belong? Sometimes we get not only enslaved to sin, we can get enslaved to a system. That system may in itself have much to commend it, but enslaved to anything, or rather freed by Jesus, to know his forgiveness and to pass it on. The woman taken in adultery knew she had sinned, and yet knew she was forgiven. What a joy to know the power of the cross.